Good morning, everyone. I'd like to welcome you to the Cook County Board of Commissioners regular meeting today, Tuesday, March 26th. We apologize for the delay, but due to the weather, we are getting started a little bit late. Let's please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. As we get started this morning, are there any adjustments or changes to our agenda? Any adjustments or changes to the agenda?
Madam Chair, I'd like to make a motion to approve the agenda.
Thank you, Commissioner Mills. Is there support?
I'll second that.
Thank you, Commissioner White. We have a motion and support. Any further discussion? All in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. We'll move on at this point to public comment. And is there anyone in the audience today that wishes to make comment? Hearing or seeing none, are there any responses that have been requested to be read that commissioners or our administrator have received?
No, ma'am.
All right. Then we'll close our public comment period and go on to our consent agenda items. Is there any item a commissioner wishes to pull?
Madam Chair, I'd like to make a motion to approve the consent agenda.
Thank you, Commissioner Mills. Is there support? Thank you, Commissioner White. We have a motion and support for our consent agenda as written. Any further discussion? All in favor? Aye. Opposed? Motion carries. We do have a public hearing coming up at 9 a.m., but we have some other items that we can move forward with. And from our Sheriff's Department, we're going to talk a little bit about the meal contract with North Shore Health. And good morning.
Morning.
Thank you so much for joining us, Deputy Halbert.
Thank you. So this is in regards to the jail. Previously, we've never had an official contract with anybody regarding meals at the jail. We went through a local restaurant, and it seems like since COVID, things have changed as far as, businesses closing seasonally for times, hours adjusting, and it was just getting a little more difficult to provide meals we have specific times during the day that we're supposed to provide breakfast, lunch, and dinner to anybody in our custody. And had some struggles since December, kind of with the same thing, just hours changing and, even closing for short periods of time. And so kind of looking at more of a long-term fix to that issue. And so talking with the hospital, their kitchen is open. Holidays, 365 days a year. So we're hoping to have a contract approved with the hospital to provide meals to the jail. The contract itself has been reviewed by the county attorney and kind of back and forth between the hospital and the county attorney, just reviewing some language and that. And so I'd hopefully like the board to approve the contract to have the jail start working with the hospital, providing meals to the jail.
Well, it certainly seems like a really appropriate decision because they are always there. They are always going to be open and making meals. Do any commissioners have questions for Deputy Halbert?
No.
Do any commissioners have questions for Attorney Hicken, who is on the phone right now?
Nope.
And Attorney Hicken, are there any comments you'd like to make this morning?
I don't think so. I'm just glad that the arrangement is in writing, and we've confirmed that the corrections rules that are applicable here can be followed, and the Department of Health rules can be followed, and just a really smooth arrangement. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Given the information that we've had shared and brief discussion, is there a motion to approve the contract with North Shore Health for meals?
I'll make a motion to approve the contract with North Shore Health for meals.
Support.
Thank you so much. We have a motion and support. Any further discussion?
Just
Commissioner
very
Mills.
happy that we're doing this, and like you said, the continuity of service and meals and care just makes a whole lot of sense. It's another example, I think, yet again, of how our organizations are developing and just progressing. Really, really pleased to see this, so thank you.
All right. We have a motion, a second. Any further discussion? All in favor? Aye.
Right?
Opposed? Motion carries. Thank you for coming in, and thank you for providing those meals.
Thank you.
Thanks, Mike.
All right, item number 6, Soil and Water Conservation District. We have Elena Hansel here this morning with us. Good morning, Elena.
Morning.
Morning.
Thanks for having me again. And just here for 2 different motions. As I mentioned previously, the Rainy River Headwaters Vermillion Comprehensive Water Management Plan is adopted now by the county and working through the process through the state to get approved. In the meantime, we are working on, we have to have a work plan and we have a budget associated with that. So with each of these water plans, we are able to have what's called watershed-based implementation funding. And so we are asking, the policy committee comes together, they approve the work plan and the budget, and then each of the respective committees members, then we go back and have the boards approve it. So before you today is the budget for the work plan. And again, it's not just Cook County that will be receiving the funding, but it's spread throughout the area of the Rainy River Headwaters area. So our total budget is $1,004,508. And then within that, we've developed, within that, we have a budget, and you'll see that there's a work plan category. So we're saying, okay, here's what we're going to work on that associates with the plan, and then we have a little bit more detailed description of each of the items. So different practices would be with forestry, working with landowners and providing cost share opportunities. There's education outreach. Cook County has put in for stream crossings for up on the Gunflint Trail to replace some culverts that are undersized, and we put in for education outreach with landowners. So we have a very small portion of this watershed, so we didn't go after a large amount of funding with this, but just enough to keep our work going up in the part of the watershed that's in our county. So.
Are there any questions for Elena? I can just say that this has been in the works for almost 2 years. It'll be 2 years in May. Lots of good effort, and I've really been proud of the collaboration that's occurred, and am just very excited to get to this point. So given that, is there a motion?
Madam Chair, I'd like to make a motion to approve the Rainy Headwaters Vermillion Comprehensive Watershed Management Plan, Work Plan, and Budget.
Thank you so much, Commissioner Mills. Is there support?
I'll support that.
Thank you, Commissioner White. We have a motion and support. Any further discussion? All in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries.
Great, thank you. Then my second motion, Madam Chair, is that the Lake Superior North One Watershed One Plan also receives funding with the plan associated with it, watershed-based implementation funding. We have previously not had board approval, but with things changing, we are now having to have board approval with our work plans and our budgets. So currently we have open with our funding is FY 2022, so fiscal year 2022 funding, and we were awarded additional funding. They call it supplemental funding that is associated with this funding. And so we were awarded $263,410. That funding is allocated between our partners, and so as you see, it's spread across just for different projects. For Cook County, that will go towards our Little Devil's Track River Bank Stabilization Project when that is implemented. And then the City of Grand Marais is going to be installing green infrastructure with their new city program. Both these projects will be providing match well exceeding what we're asking for this grant. And we're just asking for approval for this funding. And for the work plan, Cook SWCD is the fiscal agent for all the watershed-based implementation funding associated with the One Watershed One Plan. So we are pretty used to this. This is our 4th biennium that we're getting ready to enter into. So And then the FY '24-25 budget has increased quite a bit. We're up to over $1 million, and you can see in the work plan that it's broken down doing administrative work. That has increased quite extensively because our obligations have increased also as the money has gotten larger, or we've gotten a lot more funding, and then we also have a lot more responsibilities with that. So our new administrative person in our office will have some of her supplemental funding coming out of this budget to help with that. And then we have cost share, which is where we work with the landowners, where we're able to provide around 25%, or they have to provide 25%. We provide 75% of project costs. Like SWCD could be working a lot with forestry initiatives. We collaborate a lot on our education outreach so that we're able to have the same message along the whole watershed. Cook County Highway Department and Cook County Land Services will be working together on aggregate mapping to benefit the understanding of our resources and water quality impacts and some of the future needs for our aggregate needs in the county and the area and how it impacts. Again, it's all needs to be tied back to that water quality piece. Lake County Environmental Services will be working with their SSTS program, so their subsurface septic treatment program. Lake SWCD is working on Knife River projects, and then Cook SWCD, again, that's to supplement some of our Little Devil's Track River project, because that project's around $400,000, and so we need a lot of money for that. So that's our work plan budget and what we're asking to have approved from this board.
All right, thank you so much. Again, having participated in the process for a long time, I am excited to see this coming forward. Commissioner White is serving with that group right now. Any comments you'd like to make?
It's a phenomenal collaboration. I mean, there's the money, and then sitting at the table for the first time, was it last month? Where just a really good sharing and a understanding of what everybody was trying to do with the limited funds that were there. Because everybody couldn't have everything they wanted, so everybody, I could just see their list, they just had crossed things off and gone for half of this amount. So it's a good working group, what I know from a 2-hour time with them, so.
All right. Commissioner Mills?
Who is your Lake County counterpart?
Yeah, Tara Solom is the district manager and water planner. So she's been there about 3 years, so she started right in the middle of the pandemic. So.
Thank you.
Well, I would like to make a motion to recommend that we approve the work plan and budget for fiscal year 24-25 and fiscal year 22 supplemental funding. Is there support?
Support?
Thank you, Commissioner Mills. We have a motion and support. Any further discussion? All in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries.
All right, thank you for your time.
Thank you so much. We appreciate all you're doing for us. All right. We have time for one short item before our public hearing. So I see that Tia Parks is here with us. And from the Highway Department, we want to talk about a resolution to approve the addition of plant species to county noxious weed list. So both Tia and Robbie Hass are going to come forward to speak with us this morning.
Good morning.
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 Sweet. Tia's definitely going to go over all the ins and outs of this. I'm just here for moral support and no. I'm just going to hand it straight over to Tia, and she'll go over the presentation once we kind of get it up. It is short, but some good information on there. So I hand it over to Tia.
It is very brief, but I'll give it a little preface before we get it up. There it is. So the Cook County Invasives team has been discussing adding 2 weed species to our county noxious weeds list over the last 18 months or so that we've been doing this. But basically what I'll do here is just go over those 2 sets of weeds, and then also kind of what that means for us as a county and how we enforce that. So yeah. Cook County noxious weeds list. Did I just mute it? while we're working on that, I can actually just go over a couple of points in the beginning that you don't necessarily need to see. So what is a noxious weed? The basic definition by the Department of Agriculture is that noxious weeds are plants that the Commissioner of Agriculture designates as having the potential or are known to be detrimental to human or animal health, the environment, public roads, crops, livestock, or other property. Okay. And then what's the purpose of a county weeds list? So we already have a state weeds list, but from county to county, things are different. And we have a couple of weeds that are a little more impactful to us or haven't gone too far compared to other counties that we want to add. So under the noxious weed law, adding species to an official county list allows enforcement of control/management of the listed species within the county's jurisdiction. Our two candidates are garden valerian, scientifically known as Valeriana officinalis, and then 2, marsh thistle, known as Cirsium palustre. So for garden valerian, you might have seen this one. It's fairly new in a sense of the last decade, but it hasn't taken over our area as heavily as it has St. Louis County. It wasn't added to the state noxious weeds list because most of the enforcement would have fell on St. Louis County. If you drive down to Duluth, you'll see just all along the roadsides, it's full of garden valerian. It has this really awful smell to it, even though it is pretty, but it's really easily spread through wind. It's got little parachutes that will just take it for miles and miles, and so it's really able to jump. So, for example, you might see a patch in town here, and nothing up the Gunflint Trail for 50 miles, and then you can go to Gunflint Lake, and down at the far end of the road, there's a pretty large patch of it that we found, but nothing else around. So, you know, that could be from construction or just regular human boots and mud, or it could just be wind, and it can really take off. So we like to call this one Tansy's ugly stepsister, but it's one that still yet hasn't really taken over Cook County, but definitely has the potential to do so. By adding it to the noxious weeds list for the county, we can actually have more of our partners be able to take care of the plant, whereas before, if it wasn't on the state list, they weren't able to really do anything about it. But adding it to our list, they can, so that will really help us out there. The next one, well, here's a few pictures. You can see that there's a pretty large infestation. I believe that one is in St. Louis County. You can see the pink flowers and the 5 petals, some of the rosettes, which are the low-lying leaves that come up the first year. And now, marsh thistle. This one's pretty gnarly looking. We have a lot of thistle species, some native, mostly not, in our area, but marsh thistle is one that's pretty unique to Cook and I believe also Lake County. The first ever sighting of it in Minnesota was in Cook County. And that site still exists just up the Gunflint Trail near George Washington Pines. And with this one, it's another one that can really just blow up and take off. If you're driving up the road, you can see these really tall, like 7 to 10 foot tall plants, just standing up near George Washington Pines with multiple flowering heads and rosettes just everywhere if you walk around and look in our ditch area. And they are definitely going to impact some of our native ditch orchids and other things like that. But we do have one patch that we're currently working on with the Forest Service, the Highway Department, Soil and Water, whoever can help us. But we have been managing that for the last couple years. But another one that's just really, really gnarly and one that we feel we need to have on the list so we can limit its expansion. More pictures. This is actually from the Gunflint Trail site. You can see how tall the plant actually is compared to the person standing next to it. And again, in comparison to other thistles, you don't see really large clusters of flowering heads on them, but for this one you do. Kind of a 8-headed dragon, I guess. All right. So that's my brief presentation on it. And again, this resolution is to just approve that we add these 2 species to our noxious weeds list.
Any questions for Tia? Commissioner
How
White?
do you deal with the noxious weeds? Spraying, cutting, mowing?
Yeah, so it really depends on which species we're dealing with and what's most effective.
Let's do the thistle one, because in our dog yard, I'm sure it came in from someplace else years ago, but there's no dogs there. It's just left, and lots of thistles like that.
Yeah, so I'm sure probably what you're seeing is not marsh thistle, sorry, not marsh thistle. There's one site in Cook County of that. You're probably seeing Canada thistle and hill
Okay.
thistle. Those are pretty well expanded across Cook County and everywhere else. They're hard to deal with. But depending on really what site it is, so for the marsh thistle, we have sprayed it before. We just did that this last summer, and then I think one summer prior to that it was done as well. Otherwise, depending on what time of year it is, say if we get it to it a little too late, but it is before the plant has gone to seed, we'll just go in and clip seed heads or just cut down on the plant to kind of diminish its physicality a little bit. But yeah, so it really depends on what the species is. And again, herbicide is a part of that. With some species, depending on how difficult they are to treat, but a lot of times we are doing mechanical work such as mowing and clipping as well.
Thank you for that information. Any other questions for Tia? Commissioner Mills?
And maybe, thank you for bringing these to our attention. I wasn't aware of marsh thistle, and yeah, it is super unique looking, and I'll notice it now if I see it. But for valerian, garden valerian, not familiar at all, so I'll keep an eye out for that too. But is this the same valerian where the root is used herbally for?
Yes,
Yeah, insomnia.
valerian has been used medicinally
Yeah.
for a long time, but it also has some pretty
Sure. Yeah.
not great effects depending on how it's used. So
Right.
I will say here, I do not recommend doing that on your own if you don't have prior experience.
Understood. Thank you.
But it is the one.
All right,
Interesting.
thank you.
I'd like to make a motion, Madam Chair, to approve the addition of the 2 plant species, Valeriana officinalis and Cirsium palustre, to the county prohibited noxious weeds list.
Thank you, Commissioner Mills. Is there support?
I'll support that.
Thank you, Commissioner White. We have a motion and support. Any further discussion? All in favor? Aye.
Hi.
Opposed? Motion carries.
Thank you.
Thank you very much for your work.
Thank you.
All right, we're going to pause from our Highway Department items and get ready for our public hearing regarding proposed changes to the county fee schedule. And these additions or changes, I should say, to our fee schedule come from Land Services and also from the Community Center. And so I see that we have Sarah Waddle and Tim Nelson here if we have any questions regarding it. But what I would like to do is open the public hearing. And are there any members of the public that wish to speak? Any members of the public who wish to speak? Right, so what we're looking at, just so everybody is aware of increasing fees for wedding events for Cook County residents, and then a separate fee for non-residents. It would be $500 for residents, $1,000 for non-residents, and that's for a weekend. Those would be the changes through the community center wedding fees. And anything you'd like to say, Mr. Nelson, about fees related to land services?
Unless you have any questions, it's pretty straightforward. Do you want me to come up and?
Why don't you just, yeah. It's just an addition based on size of bags. It's kind of a unique thing, so.
Yeah, it's a fee. Good morning, Madam Chair and Commissioners, and even you, Brady. The fees that we have been looking at have been set for a very long time at our Tofty transfer station. We had worked for a long time with the waste hauler that was out on the west end. Now we are down to one hauler and looking at the prices that are charged per bag, scattered like in Lutsen, at Hanson's, Isaac Hanson's and such down the shore. Ours is really exceedingly low, and this still doesn't even bring us to being at par. It's just a step above where we were at. So basically, yeah, the 13-gallon, which are the kitchen-sized bags, going from $2 to $3, and the 30-gallon bags, which are the larger ones, going from $4 to $6. And that's it at this point.
Commissioner Mills.
So what would bring us at par?
More like $8 up in that area. So it's not, I mean, we're not talking a huge range. And that's because it's per bag.
Commissioner Mills.
Why don't we go to par?
Well, we could, we just thought being a step up,
It's better than, yeah,
yeah.
better than it
So a
was.
gradual increase.
Gradual increase, it brings us above where we were, and doesn't, put us as, we don't get a lot. I mean, we do get garbage through there, but not a lot. And it's the joint public-private kind of venture thing, and so it's the waste haulers. We charge the fee, they collect and manage that. They actually transfer that waste with their facility located up here in Grand Marais, and it all goes down to the Western Lake Superior Sanitary District. So we're still in further discussion with them, taking a higher look at our overall system in accordance with that solid waste management plan that we had adopted last year.
All right, great. Thank you for that. All right, any further questions? Hearing or seeing none, is there a motion to approve the changes to the miscellaneous fees as requested by the Community Center Board and also Land Services?
Also move.
Thank you, Commissioner White. Is there support?
Support?
We have a motion and support. Any further discussion? All in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Thank you. All right.
It's just a procedural question. We're supposed to close the, I guess it doesn't matter.
All right, at this time, we are going to move back to item 7, Highway Department, and ask our highway engineer to come forward again. Thank you for your patience.
Thank you. Good morning again.
Good morning.
So normally with these projects, if you remember not too long ago, I gave kind of a longer presentation about the 10-year transportation plan, what was upcoming this summer, what was coming up, in the foreseeable future. Normally if a project, gets bumped a year, I wouldn't come back and do something like this, but the fact that I literally just gave this presentation and we have kind of some substantial changes for us, we felt it was important to come back. And so just kind of update it again. So I don't know, I think can you see the slides? Do you have, there's a handout slides? Yes?
I mean, yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
okay.
It's in
I'm
there.
Yeah,
just
they're in the
making sure. So really the biggest thing, for 2024, if you remember, we had, and we've talked about a lot, our big Gunflint Trail project, Mill to Hill. Additionally, the reconstruction of Tofty Park Road, and then actually another bridge replacement down on Cascade Beach Road. Through literally every reason you can think of why a project would get delayed, happened in some shape or form on every single one of those projects. So not to no detriment at all. This is what happens when you dot your I's, cross your T's, and get way too much money or lots of different grants or whatever it is. It's a lot of moving parts that we deal with. And so, those 3 projects, and since we're already to the end of March, as we've discussed here quite a bit, bidding up here is complicated. We like to be first on, contractors' lists as far as projects. We've tried to go out in the past, kind of later in the season, and seen our estimates and seen prices come in double what we thought it was going to be, to then rebid and then get multiple bidders and a lower price. So at the end of the day, that's really what it comes down to, is that what you'll see is still in 2024, all of these projects are going to be taking place. So, we're still doing our Alfred Creek Bridge replacement. That's done and awarded and set. Our heated storage facility, that's in progress right now. We have the site cleared, and it's actually currently out for bid right now. So if you're a local contractor and you are looking for something to do this summer, I would encourage you to read the paper or give me a call. I can point you somewhere. And then lastly, our big project up in Grand Portage, realigning part of Mile Creek or Upper Road there and the new timber bridge. So all of those are still happening this summer. The biggest changes, like I said, is 2025, and it affected, a couple of extra years down the line, but really just in the short term. So for next year, what we're really looking at is Tofty Park Road will be reconstructed, the Spruce Creek Bridge on Cascade Beach Road, that'll go through. Our big Mill to Hill project, that also includes resurfacing Cutoff Road, a minor realignment of Old Ski Hill Road as well, and a bridge replacement of the Little Devil Track River. Now will also include the multi-use trail that we've talked about for 2025. So actually, the Gunflint Trail from Highway 61, well, not quite Highway 61, from about GES up to Four Corners, we'll have some form of construction happening on it in 2025. And then another one we've talked about quite a bit in 2025 is our Arrowhead Trail resurfacing project. That includes a bridge. Right now, it's a culvert that floods a lot, and so that'll get upsized into a bridge, a larger box culvert, where Otis Creek is. That'll be in tandem with MnDOT's project along Highway 61, again, upsizing a culvert at Otis Creek. We'll be exploring actually extending the pavement all the way up to Irish Creek Road. We are in progress right now of scheduling our first kind of public meeting for that. It'll be end of April, early May, somewhere in there, up at the Hovland Town Hall, so look for more information there. And then additionally, resurfacing Chicago Bay Road. Everything's kind of happening, if we're going to do a big project on the Arrowhead, Chicago Bay needs it. It's a nice local project, TST funds, that's what we have it for, will be that. So I could ramble on and on about more projects, but at least in the short term, this is what we're looking at. I don't know if anybody has any questions or concerns.
Any questions, Commissioner Head?
Arrowhead
Mills.
Trail resurfacing, that's
Yes.
kind of always been scheduled for 2025, right?
Right.
So it's just these other ones that were bumped, but.
Right.
And it's not my district, but I've gotten feedback on kind of some of the patchwork that was done there. So
Right.
thank you for that. And thank you for working with residents that have concerns out there. We know that the patchwork is kind of a short-term fix.
Right.
And the feedback was also that, yes, it was nice and we need it again, of course, so.
Right.
Just wanted to pass that on.
It
and I
is.
already know, but yeah.
That's fair, I appreciate it.
Yeah, thank you, though. This is how it goes, and really appreciate how well you line things out and get funding and communicate as well.
Thank you. Yeah, and two, there was some concerns, with delaying, especially our Gunflint project around funding, maybe some grants that might be sunsetting. And so the nice thing is because, and I'm not going to even pretend to understand state and federal fiscal years and how certain months lead to line up and whatever, we're good to go, we're not losing anything, we're fine.
That's all we need to know.
That's it, yeah, no, I know, I hear you. That was complicated, but anyways, yeah.
All right, well, we appreciate the update. I'm sure Commissioner White, you'll be up there for meetings.
We're going to be connecting, Robbie and I, to the world, whomever might be listening, all two of you. But this time around, when our engineer comes to the Hovland Town Hall, we will be having more of a sloppy Joe, no more donuts type of a situation. And it will not just be a presentation, it will be an opportunity to ask him all sorts of questions, as he
Absolutely.
is so good at, which really built trust the last time around. And so he can walk without fear in District 1.
Yeah, it'll definitely be more, and I like doing that in the preliminary, and even on most projects, just town hall. We're gonna have a bunch of exhibits for people to look at, comment. Here's a pen and a sticky note, comment away, doodle on it. It's way better than sitting through 45 minutes of me talking about road cross-sections and capacity of pavement. So, yeah, looking forward to that one. More info to come for sure.
All right, well, thank you so much. We appreciate the updates.
Thank you very much.
All right. And thanks for keeping our roads clear this morning.
I'll pass that along.
All right. We're going to move on to item 8, MIS, and I see that Roland Watkins is here to speak with us this morning about cameras, card access, and panic buttons.
Good morning, everyone.
Good morning.
Madam Chair, members of the board, today we have a recommendation to accept the proposal from ProTech Design to replace the existing camera, card access, and panic button system and convert them to a cloud-based system at the Cook County Courthouse, Highway Department campus, Recycling Center, and Community Center. So very high level, we're talking about 80 cameras, 5 door access controls, and then 11 wireless hubs and 18 panic buttons and all the required licensing to retain that stuff for 10 years. The primary purpose behind this is to address the need for technical updates to this system, but we also are looking at this as an opportunity to control and flatten costs, both replacement and service costs, eliminate single points of failure, increase reliability, as well as secure service level agreements with an approved vendor. kind of how we got here is in response to the need for critical updates to the existing system. We felt it appropriate to investigate other options as opposed to just simply reinvesting in the existing system, and compare them against the existing system. Options considered were, of course, reinvesting in the existing system and kind of moving on as we have been, a system that's a little over 10 years old now at this point, components of it anyway, and then wholesale replacing it with a similar on-prem system, kind of just renewing with a different vendor, or moving to a cloud-based system, which is what this proposal is and the recommendation is. And so just briefly, we could kind of go through a lot of these, but some of the key factors that support the recommendation that we have here today include, as I mentioned, cost control. So this proposal comes with a 10-year, no questions asked equipment warranty and 10 years of licensing. And typically those costs are increased about 8 to 10% year over year. So that's a big cost control factor. Next, reliability and the elimination of single points of failure and added redundancies. So on the on-prem system, there's it's called a network, an NVR, network video recorder. It's just a server, a single box that if that component fails, you are out and down without having recording. And this eliminates that in a few different ways. One, that box doesn't live here. It's somewhere off-site in the cloud. But the cameras that we're purchasing also retain recording capabilities inside the device themselves. So if we lost internet connection, our ability to get to the cloud, we're still recording. Scalability is another one, easy to add or reconfigure equipment, and the ability to add this system at non-networked sites. And so even though that's not in the proposal here, if at some point we were ever to look at the outlying highway shops or communication towers or other things that aren't on a secure closed network like these buildings all are, we could add them to that and continue to have a standardized system, which operationally is just much easier. One system to learn and maintain and manage. It also meets BCA and CJIS requirements for cloud storage. BCA is Bureau of Criminal Apprehension, and CJIS is Criminal Justice Information Systems. And when you're putting this type of information in the cloud as a government entity, you need to meet those requirements, and this proposal does that. Another really big one for us is the unlimited storage, unlimited cloud storage. So in the configuration that we have today, we have a set amount of storage, and because some cameras are defined or triggered to record based on motion, it's kind of a moving target. The more motion there is, the less retention time you have. And we've run into trouble with that in the past where we've had to recreate processes and unload a lot of storage video recordings and save it somewhere else and back it up. Probably the best example of that would be like the election box, where throughout the election period, we need to have a camera recording all the time, capturing all that continuously, showing that nothing has happened to that election box. And there's other scenarios too, but just the fact that it's unlimited cloud storage gives us a lot of archiving and retention flexibility. And then lastly, service level agreements. So a contract with an approved vendor that defines response and resolution times is huge to us, and something that we don't have right now and something that we've had issues with. So when will this critical system be replaced, and when will we get support? And that would all be defined in this proposal. The cost of the recommended upgrades is $269,335.13. This is proposed to be covered by PILT funding that the county has set aside in case they needed to pay back, which they've been informed they're able to keep those funds. That's a high-level summary that I have, and I would stand for any questions.
Are questions, any from commissioners? I know we spent time speaking with you last week.
Oh.
Anything additional?
Madam Chair.
Administrator.
I would just like to recognize the great work of Rowan Watkins in doing the technical investigation of options. I feel really good about the way he approached it. I think it was a really thorough analysis. I think the recommended solution is one that is great for all the reasons that he just spoke about. Gives us flexibility. If we need to make changes to the system, we can do so with a minimum of cost or installation difficulties. I also want to recognize the other folks who were part of exploring these options. So County Attorney Molly Hicken, Sheriff Pat Eliason, Public Health and Human Services Director Allison McIntyre, Emergency Management Director Mike Keyport, and Maintenance Director Brian Silence were all involved in discussions about the best path to take. And so it was really a great team effort, and appreciate everything that everybody contributed.
Yeah, thank you very much.
Commissioner White.
Thank you. I'd like to add to that. I really appreciate the fact that we have, our employees are doing their job and they're doing it together. And it's just what the expectation is, and good job, all of you.
Thank you.
All right. Well, is there a motion to accept the proposal from ProTech?
So move, Madam Chair.
Thank you, Commissioner Mills. Is there support?
Support that.
Thank you, Commissioner White. We have a motion and support. Any further discussion? Commissioner Mills.
I just want to, for the public's benefit, talk about the process kind of we've had with the building committee, and then also, the information that we got as a board, and a little bit of the history with our systems goes back to incident at the courthouse, and things were really ramped up then. And since that time, the community and the employees have all been aware of security measures that we've taken steps towards since then, and we've had enough time now, and Rowan has taken the time, and employees have too, to really evaluate the system and to see where we can make it more efficient and improve it, and where its deficiencies are, and so this, I think, thoroughly explored that, and then came with a very thorough recommendation too. So just so everyone knows the thought that's gone into it.
Rowan.
I would just add that I also want to thank the building committee, the security committee, and all the stakeholders that Administrator Yorkie mentioned, because it was a very kind of long and thorough process to land at both what I see as not only a big technical improvement, but operational improvement in how we utilize these systems. And it's very happy about the process.
Commissioner White.
Could you explain what the cloud is? We know it's not a real cloud, but how do we know that will not at some point crash and burn like everything else?
Sure. So maybe the best way I've ever seen it described is on a fun T-shirt, and it said the cloud is just someone else's computer. So
Exactly.
instead of it living in our building and having a single point of failure, you have a company that specializes in that, and they have redundancies built in, and for us to access that and to make sure that our data is copied and has multiple copies and we can always access it, they invest the infrastructure to do that. So large facilities that are specialized in that and put more infrastructure and systems in place than it would be cost benefit for us to do so, and just makes it a lot more reliable. And because we have such great internet and redundant connectivity here in Cook County now, it really makes a lot of sense for us to leverage that as opposed to trying to replicate it ourselves on-prem in our own buildings.
And on-prem means on premises, for those of you that don't know what that little word is. But where are these companies located
Different ones.
physically?
Different ones are located all across the country, and so,
In U.S. territory?
yes.
Commissioner
I would just describe it as a distributed network. And so it's not necessarily in one place to fail, it's in many different places. So to take it out, you'd have to take out all the different places.
That's
so
the
it's-
challenge.
That's the challenge. And the security of it.
And it's, yes.
Oh, shoot, there was one other thing I wanted to mention. Kind of back to the thoughts and the descriptions that we've had as a board, and just looking at the dollar amount, right? That's a big dollar amount, and so it gave us all pause, just like, oh, okay. And then thinking more about it and analyzing it over 10 years, it's actually a really good deal. And locking in that agreement for the 10 years is
Yeah, it
really.
gives us cost control.
Yeah, and it's really a great value over that time period. So I just want to point that out. This is not like a flippant, oh, we got Boundary Waters money, now let's, go spend it. This is a very thought out situation, and really analyzing the finances of things too, just what's going to be most cost effective, so.
Yeah, we have about 2.157 million that we've put aside for the Boundary Waters in case we had to pay it back. So it's, there's a lot of money left after this.
All right. Well, very good discussion. We've had a motion and a second. Anything else? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries unanimously. Thank you so much for your work.
Thank you very much.
Thanks, Roland.
All right. Tim Nelson returns to the front to talk about land services items. We're going to begin with our Kurt Dornfeld conditional use permit.
Okay, thank you again, Madam Chair. This is a conditional permit, or conditional use permit request that is recommended unanimously by the Planning Commission for the construction and use of a 30 by 50 foot accessory structure within the R1 zone, residential 1 zone. This is located just west of town, and interestingly enough, it is outside of the city limits, but it's inside the what is called the 2-mile jurisdictional zone, which threw a little bit of discussion in there with regards to the fact that it's not our jurisdiction, or it is our jurisdiction, it's not the city's jurisdiction with regards to zoning aspects, but the city has jurisdiction with regards to subdivision. So this has nothing to do with subdivision at this point, but I just throw it out there because one of the conditions is related to subdivision. So in this particular case, there was no public comment that would have been written and submitted prior to the Planning Commission meeting, nor were any members of the public attending the meeting and provided any public comment to it. It was a fairly straightforward request. The size limit for an accessory structure without a conditional use permit in the R1 zone district is 1,000 square feet. This is 1,500, so it was all very straightforward. The Planning Commission felt that it was in character of the locality, the community that it is, and again, unanimously recommends in favor with the two condition that any subdivision parcel shall ensure that new property lines meet the conforming setbacks, which is in our ordinance anyway, and then the use of the structure shall be for personal use. Any commercial use out of it would require an additional conditional use permit.
Right, thank you so much. Questions that commissioners may have? Not, I'd like to make a motion to approve the conditional use permit for the accessory structure zone single-family residential with the conditions as listed for the Kirk Dornfeld property.
I'll second that.
Thank you, Commissioner White. We have a motion and support. Any further discussion? All in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries.
Okay, thank you. And the next item's also very straightforward. As I had mentioned in my previous discussion here with the change in the prices, we did adopt a regional solid waste management plan last year. And if you recall, I had brought a letter of support or a request for a letter of support from this board last year for a facility in Keewatin for the disposal of solid waste. And if you may have seen in the news lately, or some of the announcements and some of the little sub-meetings that have been had, the Moccasin Mike landfill in Superior is closing. And so in the region is looking for alternative placement for solid waste. And so there are a few facilities that are working with the Minnesota Pollution Control Agency, kind of in a competing effort to see, who can get permitted or for expansion and such like that. The Keewatin facility in Keewatin was one of them, and this board passed the letter of support for that. It is supported by our regional solid waste management plan, as is this facility in Virginia. This is for the St. Louis County facility. So what this does is this basically does not commit the county to any specific location as to where our solid waste goes, but what it does is it's an acknowledgement from our county that facility is included in the plan and one of the potential alternative sites, and then it's up for that site to work with the pollution control agency to get their permits. And then it's up to our private local waste hauler. We do not control where the waste goes, the private local waste hauler does. So they would be the ones, and everything right now gets transferred down to WLSSD, and so there would have to be kind of their thought and their business plan as to whether they would continue to go directly to WLSSD, Western Lake Superior Sanitary District, or if they would go to one of these other facilities if they were approved by the Pollution Control Agency. But this is just a kind of an administrative step, basically an acknowledgement, as we had done for the Keewatin facility, for the facility in Virginia.
All right. Thank you. Any questions for Director Nelson? If not, I would entertain a motion.
So moved, Madam Chair.
Thank you, Commissioner Mills. Is there support?
I'll support.
Thank you, Commissioner White. We have a motion and support for a letter of support for the Regional Waste Disposal Facility. Any further discussion? All in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All right.
Yeah, a small break.
We will take a short break, a 5-minute break, and then come back to item 10, which is human resources. Thank you. Welcome back, everyone, to the Cook County Board of Commissioners regular meeting. We've had a short break, and we're returning to item 10, which is Human Resources, and Administrator Yorkie is going to handle that item this morning.
All right. Thank you, Madam Chair. Good morning, Commissioners. You've got 3 job descriptions before you this morning. 2 of them are remaining at their current grade. That is the Land Services Technician, which was and remains a 140. And then the Children and Family Services Supervisor position remains at a grade 200. The third position, which is the Assistant County Assessor position, is being upgraded from a 180 to a 200. I want to mention that in the Personnel Committee meeting last week, there was discussion about our process for updating these job descriptions and making sure that they're properly classified. And we did have an instance where one of these job descriptions was modified after it was graded. And we've been really purposeful about making sure that those two parts of the project remain separate. So the way it's supposed to happen and the way it has happened in all cases, except for this one, is that the job description, the employee and the supervisor work with our Human Resources Director to make sure that the job description is accurate and complete. It gets sent to our consultant, David Drown Associates, where additional edits are recommended. Then it comes back to the department so that everybody can agree on the final job description, making sure that, again, it's accurate and complete. And then it goes for grading. And so what would happen in one of these instances is that the job description came back with edits and a grade on it. And then subsequently, changes were made to the job description that resulted in the grade being changed. And for the integrity of the process, I decided that we had to base the grade on the initial job description because it was something that had been worked on by the department. And so that was something that the process became a little compressed, and the grade was not supposed to have come back with the edits from the consultant on the job description. And so anyway, we talked through that and decided to base the grade on the initial job description. If there's a need to revise that job description in the future, we'll be able to do that in a future round of updates. But at this point, that position is remaining at the current grade. So.
And I was at that meeting, so I appreciate the explanation. Any other discussion? Any questions?
Just happy we're moving through these.
Yeah, it'll be nice to, at the end of the year, have gone through all of them. It's been a long process. Well, I'd make a motion to approve the job description updates for Land Services Technician, Assistant County Assessor, and Children and Family Services Supervisor.
Support.
Thank you. We have a motion and support. Any further discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Thank you. Auditor Powers.
Thank you, Madam Chair. First item are the guidelines for the revolving loan fund. So these haven't been revised, let's say, to any extent since I've been here. The things have been added, there have been minor changes. So this is a wholesale revision of the guidelines. Mostly it's adding parts that are in state guidelines that are written in those guidelines, that are referred to in our guidelines, or state statutes. So a lot of that is now added to the document, which will make my job simpler instead of referring to 3 statutes, another set of guidelines, and our own guidelines. A lot of it is right here now in these guidelines to kind of summarize the objectives on the first page. Those are from the state guidelines. Some of those were already in our guidelines, but we've just added all the wording that is in there now. Investment in technology, private investment for economic renewal, increasing the tax base, the quality of existing jobs, employment, economic opportunities, and the last one includes manufacturing, which we don't see much of here. The next section was from our existing guidelines, the loans to complement, not compete with private lending institutions. The next, number 2, and tell me if I'm going too fast, if you want to go through these slowly, or, so the authority, so this is new, this whole section is new, funded by the Minnesota Investment Fund Program back in the mid-1980s, and then it refers to the 3 statutes that we work underneath. And we can always be more restrictive than state statutes, but no less restrictive. And we are often more restrictive. The RLF Advisory Committee, many changes here to stipulate the county attorney is non-voting, which has been the case for many years, but also that the commissioner should be non-voting, which is a change. To stay outside of the voting on these and then be kind of a neutral arbiter, so to speak. And then that there are 5 to 7 that the county board can approve, or I should say 5 is what it says here. But then there are the other members, voting members. So there'll be up to 7 total. And electing a chair annually, which we've not done. Members are appointed for 5-year terms, so we'll be back to reappoint. There's no limit in here on how many terms. We follow the operating rules of the Cook County Board of Commissioners, specific to advisory committees. And we have to submit an annual conflict of interest statement. We've done that on an ad hoc basis and not with a written form. So this formalizes that now. Good for people who have any connection to any of the projects. The allowable use of proceeds is just an expanded list from the state guidelines from what you'd already seen. It includes working capital, which we have not included in the past, but this is an allowable use, for example. Ineligible activities, now they're specifically stated here. Expansion of a casino or a sports facility. Those are not likely here, but to use for a store for retail sales. That's one that could be a challenge here, or it could be, an issue. It's too bad for us because we don't have a lot of manufacturing. We do have retail sales because we're a tourism area. So we'll see if that comes before us. Terms of the loan, some clarification there. The terms are now, they're 20 years and 10 years, 10 years for equipment and 20 years for capital improvements, land and buildings. And now the clarification is tying it to the security provided, because the security, if the security is equipment, that may have a shorter term than fixed assets. So it really ties it to the security behind it. And we've always thought about that and basically followed that, but it's never been explicit. And so it takes the thinking and sometimes debate over it away. So our loans are still set at $75,000 because that's when a whole set of requirements come in. If we give a loan with a subsidized interest rate over $75,000, it kicks in some reporting requirements that we prefer to stay away from. So if their loans are over 75, then they have to be charged a market rate, and that's where we stay away from those requirements. That we still, this group, as with groups 30 years ago, did not want to go down that road. So, interest rates, again, are tied. There's a better interest rate for fixed assets. So again, and lesser for machinery and equipment, but again, it's tied to the security. Usually they line up together, but in case they don't, it's really tied to the security and the length of time that you're going to have that security. The maximum participation stayed at 250,000. So we haven't, these are all recommendations, so the committee is recommending not to change that maximum, but stating here that commissioners may approve exceptions to this percentage. And way at the end, it gives you some suggested reasons to look at if you did want to change that maximum, which you just did recently for the Heights project. And that would be things such as use of the funds. What are the funds used for? Are they key economic sectors and needs? Are the scale of the project? What's the impact it has on those needs? The leverage is a small amount of money from, a relatively small amount of money from us gaining a large project, again, with a large impact. And what are the quality of any guarantees? So those are some things suggested to look at if you make those, and you used all those, I believe, on that project. The next section, other provisions, those are all in our guidelines now. For-profit businesses usually, but also nonprofits are considered under special circumstances, adequate security, that the activities are located within the county. That's pretty obvious, but good to state it. And that no loan would result in more than 250,000 aggregate loans to a common owner defined as 20% ownership. Again, that would be open to exceptions as that project we just saw. The application project, now in number 5, this is just explicitly putting in here some of the processes that we've used but weren't in the guidelines. Some new things, completing the basic loan application in the name of the individual or business entity that would receive the loan proceeds. People have many names for their businesses and for themselves, and this is more explicit now. Please tell us right from the get-go who's going to own it. The recipient must demonstrate they're creditworthy, can fulfill their obligations, and here specifically saying they must give us provide a consumer credit report, a personal financial statement, employment records, verification of their bank accounts. Those are often given to them verbally, but now it's explicit. So. And then just some of the consideration of applications. And that this is a vote, and then this is then passed on to the county board, who are the only entity who actually approve a loan. At the start of any meeting in which applications are considered, any member with a conflict or apparent conflict shall disclose their conflict. So, in case anyone forgets, it's here explicitly. Again, required loans, documents, commitments by borrowers. This has changed a little bit. We had a very tight timeline on notices and interest charged for late that we weren't following because it was too tight for some of these. So now we've made it more realistic. It fits what's actually happening, what the committee actually expects, and seems more realistic with the real world, and we will follow it explicitly. Number 9, businesses receiving funds must pay each employee total compensation, including benefits not mandated by law, at 110% of the federal poverty rate for a family of 4. So this is on the Deed Business Finance website, so we are going to try to follow that guideline. I think in most cases we've had that happen because rates are such up here, but now we'll be attempting to follow that. And a business that receives funds greater than $200,000 must agree to list any vacant or new positions related to financial assistance on the Minnesota Network's Net Job Bank website. That's new. Again, that comes from a statute, and and we don't have to search for it. It's here. And I think I'll leave it at that. I think those are the main highlights.
So are there questions for Auditor Powers? Commissioner Mills?
Thank you, Madam Chair. Thank you, Auditor Powers. There was just that one word here in section E under, so it's 4E. Well, the last word, this percentage. That is a context that I was maybe not familiar with. Is that the right word for this?
Oh. I think it refers to 1/3 of the aggregate amount. Yeah, I know it does. So 1/3 is
Gotcha.
considered a percentage.
Thank you.
And,
Yep.
and we have always followed that. The state allows up to 50%.
Okay.
So this is where we're more restrictive, and this has been in effect since the start of the fund. We always offer 1/3 our support, and that's because the committee's also always had a strong feeling that we don't want to be in competition with the banks. We don't want to. Some people would take the low interest money as much as they can get, but we don't want to be in competition. So this is just leaning in that direction. But when we have very small loans, we'll come to you and ask you to fund an entire $5,000 loan.
Sure.
Without, any other. So there are exceptions like that, or maybe half for small loans,
Thank you.
basically.
Another example of our processes developing, and really, really grateful for this, really making things a lot more clear and hopefully easier for all parties involved. And so on that note, is this, I mean, clearly it's protecting our community. Is this any easier for applicants, or is it a little more difficult, or?
I don't think so, because that it's more difficult, because I'm not sure that they read and thoroughly understood.
Sure.
We had many of these things, they were really in a list, and I don't think they tied, if they did read them thoroughly, they weren't tying them all together, and this ties a lot of it together better for those that do read it thoroughly. I mean, most people, I shouldn't say most, a lot of people rely on the face-to-face, the contact. Calling us, they really don't want to read it all, they want to hear it.
Yeah, yeah.
But those that do want to read it all, it's in a better context and a little more thorough. And if we need to look something up ourselves when you get a question, it's easier for us to find it and to make sense of it for them quicker.
So because of the clarity, it's hopefully making it easier for both the applicants and the committee.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I've had files with my, the 3 statutes, and then updating them every couple of years, because periodically you've got to go through and read that and scratch your head, because it fit. So this, it's just it's a quicker way to start. Sometimes you're still going to go scratch your head, but it's just quicker and easier at the beginning, so.
Thank you.
I would just share, for me, as an alternate for the revolving loan fund, it makes it so much more clear, and I don't have to go to a variety of places or people to get the information that I need. It's kind of, everything's there. And I appreciate the work the committee did, particularly Attorney Hicken, getting this all put together.
We've had starts of changes many times over the 30 years I've been here, and they've never concluded. They've never gone anywhere other than, well, we'll just add this for now. And so, finally, we got a group that wanted to tackle it. There, I'd say 3 people on the committee that really kept pushing it, and say, let's do it, let's do it, let's do it. And so, finally got done.
All right. Any other questions for Auditor Powers? If not, is there a motion to approve the revised guidelines for the Cook County Revolving Loan Fund?
So moved.
Thank you, Commissioner Mills. Is there support?
I'll support.
Thank you, Commissioner White. We have a motion and support. Any further discussion? All in favor? Aye.
Aye?
Opposed? Motion carries. Thank you. On to our next item, which is a fiscal agent for the
Yeah,
Superior
so-
Cycling.
First thing I have to do is make a correction. So it is fiscal agent, but we're also the grantee. So I pulled this from the last one that I did, where we were just the fiscal agent and the club was the grantee. So we are actually the grantee on this and fiscal agent, not the Superior Cycling Association. So this is for a $400,000 grant from the Greater Minnesota Regional Parks and Trails Commission, who have been very generous towards our programs, bike programs up here. So this is to rehab the high climber trail, that's the Lutsen to Britton Peak. It was done 10 years ago or so. It's had a lot of use, and they get worn down. And it's also for the Bicycle Skills Park in Grand Marais. And you've heard about both of these when they came in and kind of laid out their program for the next 2-3 years, and this was part of it. So this is now that grant, the big one. And there's a $75,000 match, and the match is allowed by Greater Minnesota Parks to be a federal grant. So the last federal grant we just got for the pincushion trails for the Phase 2. So that $75,000 is the match for this one. So no funds from the county, no funds from the club for this. So the county attorney, this is a boilerplate state grant form. There isn't, I've read it, there isn't much to, let's say, ponder, but whether we should have a grant agreement for something this large with Superior Cycling Association. We did it when they first had the high climbers, so I'm talking with the county attorney, and I think you'll see an agreement specific to these projects with, I think, Superior Cycling Association come forward before we spend any of this.
Okay. Thank you for that information. Any further questions or comments?
I do have a
Minister
question.
Rio.
Thank you, Madam Chair. So this didn't pop up in my mind when we had our agenda review meeting yesterday, but I did talk to Sarah Waddle later in the day, and the skills park, the pump track that they're proposing to put in place is something that ultimately we would have ownership of then, right, and responsibility for maintaining. When the agreement comes forward, I think we need to have a conversation about ownership and care of that equipment, because it is something that will require time and resources to maintain. And I just want to make sure that we're not taking on another task that we don't have people or money to actually take on. So
That was part of the thinking we haven't really talked yet, but I've put it in Molly's ears, so.
yeah. And I'm not saying that at all as a knock on the project. I think it's a great thing to have. I just want to make sure we have a
Yeah.
plan for taking care of it.
Yeah, and I have no doubt that the club will take that on, but it needs
Mhm.
to be,
In writing.
In writing, explicit, people change. and they
Yeah,
just
for
need to-
sure. Yep.
Commissioner Mills.
So it would be county property then, the equipment? Because I guess that's maybe news to me.
Well, if we're the funding recipient, I
grantee.
assume that we're the
Yeah.
owners too, correct?
I don't know how we would, I guess.
Mhm. Mhm.
Yeah.
Okay.
There'd be some complicated structure if we weren't, but,
Sure. Okay. Well, I'll make the motion to act as fiscal agent and grantee for a $400,000 grant from the Greater Minnesota Regional Parks and Trails Commission for the high climber rehab, as well as the bike skills park at the community center. And on top of that, I'll include naming Auditor Powers as the fiscal agent.
Is there support?
I'll support that.
Thank you, Commissioner White. We have a motion and support. Any further discussion? All in favor? Aye.
Hey,
Opposed? Motion carries. Thank you.
The last one is easier. This is the airport equipment grant purchase. This is for the hydraulic angle broom that attaches to a skid steer, which the airport has had a broom, but it hasn't worked very well, and it's decades old, so this.
And we are very lucky we didn't
Yeah.
have a lot of snow this year because it would have
Yeah.
been a huge issue, so. This relates back to what I reported on about a month ago, that we received those 2 grants, notification of a couple of grants that Rodney Roy had written, and so this is just the funding that's coming now.
Yeah. So this is the total amount, $16,1970 is 75% of the total cost of the broom and the snow pusher blade. So it covers both of those. They'll keep the old units for backup or parts. So total cost, $21,360. The state pays the $16,000, and the county pays the $5,340. And we get that large maintenance amount, and Rodney says plan is to take it from that maintenance grant.
Correct.
40-some thousand, so.
all right, Madam Chair, I'd like to make a motion to approve the grant agreement with MnDOT for the snow pusher blade and the broom.
Thank you, Commissioner. All support? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Thank you very much. Administrator Yorkie,
All right.
updates.
Thanks again, Madam Chair and Commissioners. A few things this morning related to the CIP. So we have had, since the last business meeting, another meeting with our consultant BKV group regarding planning for the Judicial Center. That process is moving forward in a good way. We've had a lot of great input from all the stakeholders. And I think our consultant, BKV Group, Henry Pittner, has been doing a really excellent job for us. It is tremendously difficult to try to put that puzzle together. It's a 3-dimensional puzzle. There are lots of constraints related to topography around the site of the law enforcement center, and then making sure all the functions in the building flow, that there's adequate space for everything, and also things like light, making sure that workspaces have as much natural light as possible, because that has a big impact on how those spaces feel and how productive people are when they're working in them. So really pleased with how that process is moving. Again, Commissioner White has been part of that. Really appreciate your involvement in that. And so the plan still is to come back to you at the April 9th business meeting with a preliminary proposal for the floor and site plan for that facility. And that will, and the reason for approving that again is in support of our bonding application to the state. And having a plan that we can show our legislators will strengthen that application and hopefully increase our chances of being funded. So that is moving forward. I am also, and I guess maybe I should pause and see if Commissioner White has anything she'd like to add regarding the process or
No,
anything else.
I covered it last time around. It's very professional, and when you said it's really complicated, I believe from the architect Henry's discussion, he gets into it.
Oh, yeah.
He likes it.
He likes to work a lot.
And it's a challenge, and he's very, it's obviously very thoughtful, and he's had a lot of experience to know what has worked in the past and what will or will not work now.
He's also been really good at listening to us and taking feedback from the group into account and coming back with redesigns. Really appreciate that. Yeah. All right, also related to the CIP, I had another call with CRBPS at the end of last week about the scopes of work for the bid packages that we're going to be issuing. I'm hoping to come back with an RFP for the board to approve at the April 9th meeting. The way it's looking right now, we're going to break them out into like projects. So for example, roofing will be one, plumbing would be another, electrical, et cetera, so that we're getting bids on all that kind of work. And hopefully the packages will be attractive enough to bidders that will get a number of bids. Like Robbie was mentioning earlier, there are a number of factors that go into how many companies will bid on a package like that. It has to do with timing and other factors. We're trying to structure this in a way that makes it attractive for firms to respond. So.
Commissioner White.
So, when you speak of firms, are you targeting outside businesses or the local contractors, subcontractors who have the abilities to do the roofs, to do the plumbing?
We'll make it widely available. We'd like to have, obviously, local companies involved in the work too. But we'll cast a wide net, and I think we have to. So in the presentation that we had at the Committee of the Whole last week about project labor agreements, that's another avenue I want to explore because I think that will give us access to a larger pool of companies that would be interested in the work. Moving on to Ty Blatnick, as was mentioned earlier, we were notified by the U.S. Forest Service that the reappraisal of the boundary waters has been completed. The letter that we got from the Forest Service on March 5th, I believe, indicated that the reappraised value was approximately 10% of the 2008 value. It did not actually provide the estimated value of the reappraisal, which was a little bit curious to me because that is the number that we've been waiting on for a long time. Just as a reminder to the board and to folks who might be listening, the 2008 appraised value of the boundary waters within Cook County was about $270 million. So the appraised value, reappraised value would have been somewhere in the $240-some million range. So I asked for clarification on what they meant by about 10% and got information back from Tom Hall at the Forest Service indicating that the reconciled value for the 2018 appraisal was $230,500,000. And that's about 14.63% of the 2008 value. In my mind, 10% and almost 15% are two pretty different things. The difference in the payment that we'd be getting from the feds is, Brady, I think you calculated about $88,000 a year.
Yeah.
And so that's significant, and I'm not clear why the letter that we first got said about 10% when the actual difference is about 14.63%. So that's something that I do want to follow up with the Forest Service to understand better why those two pieces of information conflict. In any case, it's still good news. I mean, we're getting to keep the funds that we've set aside over the last several years. And as Brady mentioned, that amounts to over $2.15 million. So that's a good thing. But it's interesting that the value between 2008 and 2018 went down. And we still feel that the Forest Service, the USDA, did not adequately consider all the factors that we put forward in our rebuttal of that initial reappraisal. So there's still work to do. Lake and St. Louis counties, we've been coordinating with them, and our plan is to start setting aside funding to do our own appraisal so that we have something that we can counter with when the next time that the Forest Service does a reappraisal in 2028. We want to have something in our pocket that says, look, we've looked at all these factors. If you are trying to maximize the value of these lands, as any seller would, it wouldn't just be timber harvest. It would be recreational use. It would be mineral development, et cetera. And so still a lot of work to be done there, but again, it's good news for us that the matter's finally resolved and that we are going to be able to collect the funds that we had set aside. So Brady, anything you'd like to add to that?
Just, you never see those errors go the other way.
Ain't that the
Rarely.
truth? Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
Commissioner Mills.
Thank you, Madam Chair. And, yeah, we should certainly count our blessings, and it's good news that we get to keep that. I'm still not satisfied with the process or the reappraisal, and I wasn't as deeply involved as others, and so I really appreciate the work that was put into it. And my understanding is, I think Lake and St. Louis are especially grateful for the conclusion of this. Just so I understand it a little bit better, and it's fine if we don't know. So we got this first appraisal, and we were like, "Wow, that's crazy," and then we appealed it. When we did that, did it go to anyone different, or did it just go to the same people and they looked at it again? Do you know?
I believe the appraiser that was used the second
So
time.
different appraiser, but I mean the decider, right, is the same?
Well, I mean, it was the U.S., the same team of folks at the
Right.
U.S. Forest Service, as far as I know.
It's just a strange, I feel like often when there's an appeal, it goes to a different group of deciders. So it's just a very strange process, all in all, and pretty frustrated. But again, we need to count our blessings. It's just that, yeah, like you said, it's very strange that our property values went down when everywhere else they've gone way up. It's
Right.
just very, very, I'd say illegal, actually. But
And in fairness, I mean, so this is for the year 2018, which is before the great inflation of values that we've seen in the last few years. Nonetheless, you know, when you think about the potential for mining and mineral development in those areas, you know, if it were not a protected area, that would be occurring. And the potential value of those minerals is significant. And so we really feel like that should be included in future consideration of the value of those lands.
yeah, I think probably they're just going to rewrite the law, but that gives us even less leverage, so. But
Well-
thank you, again, for working on it. I know it was all kinds of work, and I am grateful for it being, you know, concluded, but I'm just not happy with that process, as, that was out of our hands, and, you know, it's
Well, I
dirty.
mean, in terms of the potential for the law to be rewritten, we are not able to charge property taxes on the BWCA. So that puts us and the other two counties at a big disadvantage. If those areas could be developed, then that would significantly impact our tax base. So, you know, I think there's a good rationale for why that legislation was put into place. And we rely on those payments in lieu of taxes to support the services that we provide to county residents. And you know, it's an enormous part geographically of this county.
And I'm just really pleased that we want to be thinking about our own appraisal for this land as we prepare for 2028. I think that's really important to do.
So we're going to take on the federal government?
Well, I mean,
That's
there's
what I
a
want to do.
defined take on.
Oh, wait, we are going to take them to court? Is the question? We're going to put
I
our
haven't said that.
resources? I'm questioning, like, what are we, we're going to do
What
our
we're
own
doing-
appraisal
There's
and present those numbers.
there's a process in place where we work with the Forest Service, the U.S. Department of Agriculture, to discuss, you know, to plan for these reappraisals. And so when the last reappraisal came back much lower than we thought it should be, we said, look, there are all these factors that you should have considered that you didn't. But we didn't actually have the numbers. Like, developing that kind of appraisal takes a lot of time. And, And so that the idea is, no, we're not like suing the federal government, but what we are doing is collecting information that we can present to say, no, we think your numbers are wrong, and here's why.
So it'll be data for the argument.
Correct.
Hard data.
And they did listen, because if, in the three counties, it made a big difference for the three counties to go back and say, we aren't accepting this. Otherwise, we'd be getting about 1.3 million a year, and under the revised numbers, we'll be, closer to 1.7, maybe 1.6, something. Yeah, so that's
Commissioner
a
Mills.
big difference.
Yeah, then that's what I'm saying, like, I want to be grateful, I want to count our blessings, but
Yeah.
it's almost like them saying, you don't get anything, and us being like, whoa, what, that's illegal, we have this law, and we think we should get this, and then be like, all right, we'll give you a little something. And then we're like, okay, phew, versus like, wait, the law clearly says, it's really frustrating. And I've kind of asked about, hey, what can we do? We could sue the feds, but how much does that cost? Do we have extra?
No.
Right, exactly. It's like, well, that's fraught and impossible, and so it's just, we don't have resources for that. It's just a very impossible situation. It's really frustrating. And we should be grateful. I'm not trying to be cheeky there. I'm truly trying to be grateful. It's just also frustrating.
The other thing to remember is when we do the reappraisal, I mean, the trend the last few years has been property values have been going up at a pretty good clip. And so I would expect when we do the 2028 reappraisal, even absent our own data, I would expect those numbers to go up. But we need to make sure that we do have data. That became really clear to us as we were going through this appeal process, that if we'd taken that step, if we'd planned ahead and done our own appraisal, which has, to my knowledge, has never occurred in the past.
Well, we never imagined this would happen.
Right.
But now that we know that it can,
Right.
we plan for that, and we get the data that we need if we need to appeal.
Yeah.
I would have had the same expectation for 2018 as the thing, and then here we are, So
Yeah.
for 2028, I'm just like, and they could just rewrite the law and change what is considered, right? Because right now they're like, clearly they're not factoring in the mineral values. Like if they were, it's a lot different formula, but.
And what would the hue and cry be if they said, okay, we'll take away the protections of the boundary water, the designation of the boundary waters wilderness, and go on in and mine? What do you think we'd do then?
Well, yeah, that's never, I guess they could rewrite that law too, but that was never, the whole premise is based on the if, right? And, yeah.
But we have this jewel of wilderness kind of like, not really, but we have undeveloped acreage that not many counties have. Count our blessings.
For sure. So, I'll keep you posted on any new information I get in regard to further communication with the Forest Service. Just a couple of other things in brief. We are collecting some information from staff about satisfaction with our current health insurance provider. We have gotten some concern from staff about things not being covered, and we are working with the Northeast Service Co-op and with Medica to explore the reasons for that. We want to make sure that, that our staff are receiving the benefits that they deserve. And so just doing some follow-up to try to get more information from staff about any issues that they're experiencing so that we can take that information and use it to make decisions about how to proceed. One other thing I wanted to mention, I had recently had conversations with Rodney Roy up at the airport about the fueling station up there. I did get a call not too long ago from the Minnesota Pollution Control Agency regarding the fuel station up at the airport. There have been some concerns about the condition of that equipment. There are some improvements that need to be made. And so just coordinating with Rodney to make sure that we're responsive to those. There should be some movement here in the coming weeks to put barricades around the fueling station to prevent aircraft or vehicles from plowing into it. And then there are some other improvements that need to be made that we've actually been putting off because we are undertaking this master planning process and didn't want to make investments in infrastructure that we would then have to tear up a few years later. So that's in process, and should have more updates on that at a future meeting. I think probably by our second meeting in April, we should have more information about the outcome of that. Last thing I wanted to mention is that I've gotten a request from the 6th District Court, Court Administration. They are interested in putting signage on the courtroom that has information in both English and Ojibwe, which I think is a really great idea. And so just wanted to make you aware of that and see if you had any questions about that that I should take back to the district. If there is support for that, then I'll let them know, and we'll bring back more information about exactly how that's going to look, where the signage will be placed, and so on.
Commissioner White?
Have we conferred with Grand Portage? I mean, they
I don't
should
know.
be part of this?
I think the district is conferring with the various Chippewa bands in the district, but I have not been
I
part
would
of that
not assume
process.
that, and I would, as the county administrator, reach out to the tribal chair and say, this is what's happening, and I just want to make certain that this was something amenable to
Mhm.
the bands.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I think that's a really good piece of advice.
Absolutely, and I know Eric Reddix has worked with other agencies with language from Grand Portage. That's part of his role with Grand Portage, so he would be a resource. And I know there was some discussion about that just in very general terms when Judge Hankey came up here about a month ago. So, but yeah, definitely something to follow up on.
That's all I have.
All right,
Thank you.
thank you. Commissioner White, updates.
Where have I been? Next week is loaded, but just give me a moment. Go to Commissioner Mills if you
All
can
right,
first.
Commissioner Mills.
Go back to Commissioner White. Just kidding.
I have,
Just kidding. No, I don't think I have anything to. Well, there's two things in one day. Well, I did attend, it's not super commissioner related, but it can tie in. Through my work on the Northwoods Food Project, there was a training up at the community center for cottage industries and food sales and just the different levels of business that is regulated through Department of Ag as well as Department of Health, and just learning about opportunities for our small businesses in our community. You can see food trucks and little pop-ups now and then, and the farmers market as well as the Saturday market. There's different food vendors, and so learned about what's required there and what's considered safe and some of the technical aspects. So that was interesting, but nothing earth-shattering there. And of course, my calendar is not open either. But what else did I? Yes. Then we had our CHB director's annual review.
CHB.
Oh, thank you, Community Health Board. And this was a 360 review, and we haven't done that before, and it was really good. And boy, what a team we have on the Community Health Board. There wasn't, the only criticism that we got from staff was something that came from the director herself, just realizing that she needs to delegate more. That was the only criticism. And otherwise, all the staff feels so supported. They're so grateful for her leadership. They feel like they have flexibility, that she cares about them personally, as well as maintaining a very professional level. So that was wonderful to be a part of that. And there were some concerns. This review was very easy. There were some concerns from other commissioners from other counties just about that 360 process, because when it's not rave reviews, things can get kind of difficult, right? And having employees go to the board versus employees go to the chain of command. And so I wanted to recognize that potential problem, but my thinking on it was, if we do this regularly enough, if the communication lines are open and healthy, then it's less likely that we'll get to that situation, So all in all, I thought it was really good. Also had our EDA board meeting. Couple things related to small businesses. Again, there's two different relief programs that are offered. One is for the lack of snow, and the other one is another small business grant program that's kind of it kind of balances out maybe COVID funds. So businesses that received COVID funds are maybe at more of a disadvantage for this round of funding, but both I think could be really helpful for businesses in our community. And then we also had our Y Council meeting, and our local director is resigning and moving on to WTIP. So a big loss there, and just speaks to our challenges in our community with housing. When there's not the staff to support our organizations, burnout happens really quick. So we can't get housing built soon enough. I think that's the root of a lot of the pressures that our community is feeling, and I know that we've identified that and we're working on it, but it's still painful. So I think that's all.
All right, thank you. Commissioner White?
And lest we forget, we were up in Grand Portage last week.
Thank you. Yes.
So those of you that weren't there, well, we were. The community groups had an opportunity to meet with Representative Straba. Senator Hochschild couldn't make it. It was a day-long event. So that's what we did last week. I also have been, well, it's not surprising, but I've been trying to have a phone conversation with the person at the state DNR level who will let us have the permit application to be considered to have roadside boat checks. It's a phenomenal web of
Bureaucracy.
Yeah, and then I finally got the name, and the person said, if you really want to talk to me, you should text me. That was the message. So to that end, there hasn't been a sound yet. So I told Amanda that I would take up that task and try to get the roadside check, because people primarily, according to the numbers that Amanda shared, people from out of state, Wisconsin and Illinois, come up here with their lake water and their invasives, and they come to our waters, and that's what we're trying to stop.
Thank
What
you
else
for
did we do?
Trying to get that taken care of.
That's key, getting in with,
Yeah, well, and then the highway department, what Robbie told us, it was quite an interesting, the story behind the need to change the schedule for this summer is, as he had said, if something could not go right, it didn't. And it's all these layers and all these different people, and if it didn't work here, then it's not working here or here, and so that was interesting. And then that was it. That was it.
Thank you. Let's see, for me, I had Planning Commission, we had the Dornfeld request, and next month there is no Planning Commission. That's a first, so. And then, of course, our legislative meetings, which we participated in Grand Portage. I want to thank Grand Portage again for hosting the event, and for Representative Scraba just dealing with a flurry of meetings throughout the day and early evening, but it was really a good opportunity to sit and visit at length with him. We had our personnel committee where we're continuing to complete job descriptions and grade updates, and again, there's light at the end of the tunnel. We're going to get through by the end of 2024. It's just amazing when you think about where we started. Cook County Historical Society is continuing to look at options for the blacksmith shop. As we know that our county attorney talked about, you know, we could put it up for sale and put an ad in the newspaper. We could sell it to the EDA and they could deed it over to the Cook County Historical Society, or we could provide a long-term lease from the county with the Historical Society. So those options are all being explored by their facilities committee. Airport Commission, in addition to the items that Administrator Yorkie mentioned related to the fuel farm, and actually the plan is to protect it, to take some of those big concrete barriers that the highway department has, move them up and surround the fuel farm, and that will protect it until the master plan work is done, and that will be acceptable by the MPCA. We are working on a non-commercial hangar and a seaplane base lease, and so we have come up with some templates for those, and those will be forwarded early next week to our county attorney for her review. We also had a request. This is interesting. We've talked about the heights a couple of times today in our meeting, and there was a request to put some of the parts or the modular units for the heights up at the airport. They need a big area to store those. And the FAA does not allow areas near the airport to have such types of things placed on them. And we've also consulted with our county attorney. That would not be an appropriate use of that lower airport property down near Skyport. We're going to have to look for other areas of land, other acreage that's available in the county that's relatively close to where the Heights is going to be constructed to be able to have for a staging area. So you had a question about that, Commissioner Mills?
Yeah, not the different locations, but this has come up in the past, and I think we've talked about it, maybe, well, not this board, I'm sure Brady's familiar with the question, though. It's just, it's FAA jurisdiction, the old airstrip there. Is that forever, or is there a process we can go through, or does FAA have plans, or?
You know, that's part of the master planning process, what will be happening to that area. We do have the seaplane base. That's really important. And then there may be other potential airport-related development that could be on that lower property. So I think in this master planning process, there's going to be probably more definition and more oversight of that area that's going to be required. It's been pretty loosey-goosey, you know, over the decades. But as we all know, the FAA, we see them in the news every day, and there's a lot of rules and regulations, and that's not just for the large airports, it's for smaller airports too, and it's for the purpose of safety, so we have to keep that in mind.
Yeah, I'm just not sure that the FAA has taken the full look of that, and it's very valuable for a number of our needs, so I just... So I'm happy to hear that it's being considered in the master plan. I just didn't know
It definitely
that
will
process. Thank you.
You bet. Had a safety committee earlier this week. That meeting, one of the things we talked about, and Jana is coordinating it for us, is fire extinguisher training. So she'll be seeking out people who are interested in getting that training, and we'll probably have a little classroom instruction and then out in the parking lot. Hands-on activity after that, but good to have. And then last, but certainly not least, it's kind of in the forefront of my mind, I'll be meeting with Ellen Bogardnis-Shimaniak from the Tofty Ranger Station about the money that came from the USDA Undersecretary for forest fire mitigation. Superior National Forest is the most likely to burn of any of those in the eastern half of the United States. We have a substantial amount of money that we need to have projects and apply for by April 23rd. So I'll be spending some quality time with her reviewing maps of Cook County from the air and trying to identify spruce budworm damage and seeing what we can do to mitigate potential fire danger from that. And how can we protect homes and lakeside communities and different places throughout the county based on what we're seeing with this dead and dying fuel that's out on the forest floor. So it will be interesting to spend time with her next week looking at all those maps and then determining what kinds of projects we can move forward. Administrator Yorkie, Mike Keyport, Aaron Mollenkling, and I all went to Duluth a week ago Monday to get information. It was very, very general about the $20 million that's available for Superior National Forest, and that would be through 3 counties. So now we've got to figure out how to put together a plan. But very encouraging that they're recognizing the risk that we have, and they're providing some funds, but we have to figure out very quickly how to utilize those funds.
And although there's there's urgency to put that plan together, the funding wouldn't actually be available until 2025.
Right.
Oh, geez.
Right, yeah. So we're,
After the fires?
Yeah, that was,
yeah. So anyway, but we're getting to work on it because that April 23rd deadline is around the corner. So, Commissioner.
will Mike Keyport or other emergency people be looking at the possible mitigation process?
Oh,
with
absolutely,
you?
yep, they're part of that.
Okay.
And in fact, we had a meeting last week with Rowan Watkins and Oberg and Mike Keyport, and we're looking at all kinds of ways to keep our community safe through the app that people can use and get through their phone, you know, in terms of evacuation, but then also in terms of prevention.
Okay.
Thank you, good question. And that would be it for me. Commissioner.
I have some questions, just a basic question about the Facilities and Budget Committee
Sure.
and the Personnel Committee. As a commissioner, we report on these places that we go. And the Facilities and Budget Committee, I'd like a verbal report on that sometime, because people, there's a written report, but if people do not go to and open up their laptops and click on everything, the information they are getting, it is verbal. And so unless it is, and many people watch YouTube, they don't watch us live, but they will listen to it, and I think it would be valuable information. On the Facilities Committee, and I had asked Administrator Yorkie, I'd like to get a report from the Facilities Director, if that's his title, Brian, as to what's going on with our buildings these days. Not that I don't know what's going on. I mean, that's just give a report, what's up. Rowan comes on occasion and does things in the highway, and I think it would be very beneficial, since people care about their buildings. This is our building man, and we're on the cusp of actually doing some deferred maintenance on these buildings. He has an important role, and I understand that he's not comfortable speaking publicly. I don't care. He has the information to share with us about what his department's doing and where he's shorthanded.
And one thing I can address is both Commissioner Johnson and I are on Budget and Facilities Advisory and on Personnel, so we can add that to our verbal reports.
Yes.
We're happy to do that.
Yes.
Alrighty. Thank you. We have another long list of upcoming meetings, and AMC Leadership Summit starts tomorrow, so Commissioner Storley and I will be heading out, sliding towards central Minnesota tomorrow morning early, and we have a number of other meetings to attend, and we have our January sales tax comparison, therefore correspondence, and our lodging tax comparison. And with that, is there a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
Thank you, Commissioner Mills. Is there support?
I'll support that.
Thank you, Commissioner White. We have a motion and support. Anything further? All in favor? Aye. Opposed? Motion carries. We are adjourned. Thank you all very much. Have a